outline I was talking about. This is the idea of working with AutoCAD, the option of dragging and dropping, the option of remembering the path, and the option of working with the file tabs, which I will be demoing. Working with views, which allows us to save a point in space, and working with the undo command. And I just added this one here this morning. I had a support case and we worked with this one here. And this is one of those little pieces that I often forget, where sometimes we use undo about 15 times and have to go back to the beginning. But with the mark option, you can always go back and undo everything you did back to a mark. And I'll demo that as well here. So let's take a look at this working with AutoCAD and some of the nice little pieces that we can have here. So let me see if I exit out of that presentation. And let's just talk about the first part here, which was just opening a drawing. And we can go File, Open, and that's what I really recommend here, using a little folder and going out to the drawing that you wanted to open it up. And that's really what I would prefer you to do, is go out there and actually open a drawing in that fashion. But what we could do here is drag and drop to a command line. So let me just go ahead and open a drawing so we have the command line readily available. And what I would like to show off here is if we happen to have other drawings, what I can do is take them and either drag and drop them into my AutoCAD session, which will run as an insert, or if I drag and drop into the command line, it then performs an open command. So I like doing that because it really feeds into what we're typically working with. We're so used to double clicking on a drawing to open it up. And I want to stay away from that, especially if you have a mixed environment where you may have multiple years. I have, at one point I had 2012 and to the most recent year, and I have civil, I have AutoCAD, I have architectural, mechanical software. So double clicking on Windows Explorer may not be the best way, but I do like the drag and drop option. The other feature here is working with the tabs. As you start looking at the tabs across the top here, I do like the option of, well, you switch from one drawing to the next, and that's neat. But I also like the option to right-click and work with the right-click available features. And if I do this here, I like the option to copy the path, so I can do a file open or copy paste it. But I also like the open to file location, which will open a Windows Explorer tab and bring it right on over here. And it takes me to wherever that drawing is sitting at. I like that. That way I can explore perhaps any other drawings, drag and drop them right in here if I wanted to. Or in this case, what I also have is, of course, the ability of just a standard open, going up here to the quick access toolbar and finding a drawing. What I often do is save folders here. That way I can go to and find a folder that I want to. Now you may have the out of the box locations. And if you have a particular folder you want to get into, what you're able to do is find that folder, right click, and simply say add current folder. Of course, once you add, you could also have the option of removing. One of the key things here is if you're working with a project, you can add the folders for that project, maybe for a deliverable, maybe for sheet sets, maybe for detail sheets, and you can add a really quick shortcut to find drawings. I like that tool a lot because it allows that flexibility for me to remember a path and not have to try to crazy navigate to a letter drive and figure out what folder it might be in, so I can remember the location of what my Active Directory might be sitting at. Let's work with some views here. And let's see here, section views, contours. Let's look at, let's work with views. So what I have the ability is at times I have maybe a pretty large site that I'm working with, and maybe there's an issue or a note that I want to get into. What I'm able to do is work with views, both in paper space or model space. And if I just type the view command, or V for view, I can take a look at the views that I've already pre-created. And you can see how this drawing has a whole bunch of pre-created views that have already been working inside of here. So I can go here to my my elevation for this design and zoom to that location in space. From the view tab, I actually have a drop down that allows me to look at where those views might be set to. So it'd be great to create a view that gives me a good name. This is particularly here a class file. So when I go to the class section about surface editing, I can direct you right to the location where I want you to zoom to, so it remembers where you were at. Now the really awesome part about this is it's easy to create, but it can also remember layers. Let's do a layer isolation inside of here. So lay ISO, and I just want to isolate perhaps just my XREF or a little bit of, my surface, or perhaps a little bit of X references that I have here. That's the XREF. And do I have any geometry that I have here? Here we go. Lay ISO, and I'll grab these suckers here. So it could potentially remember, geez, the geometry I have working with, and in this case, this is all civil data and X references. Let's see here. I'll take the property then. Play ISO on my property. And it turns off the line work. So that's all I see. So what I can do inside of here is create a view, V for view. I'll create a new one and I'll say parcels. Now, there is an option with a little double chevron down here to have it remember my layer states. You don't have to save it. And what it could potentially do for us is enable the location and space and the layer scheme that was on there. Again, I'm going to switch over here to my views. I can type V for view and look at this box and figure out which any one of these other labels, views that I had before, alignment XREF, and it's going to take me to that location. In that case, it did not remember the layer states. Lay on, lay thaw. I can bring everyone back. And I can go back here and look at, what was it, parcels that I just created, and it remembers that location. So it remembers that point in space. So if you need to review a location or have a note of something, not only does it remember what's on and what's off. Now this can also play a big role in what you might be working with as far as your layout tabs. So what you can do over here is switch over to your layout tabs and start adding views here. I can create viewports by hand, but with the newer set of Civil 3D, and this has been working for about a couple of years now. Under the layout tab, I have the views working for me here, where I can literally say, hey, let's create this view here. Boom, there's my corridor. I can hit this little drop down. Let's create the cul-de-sac and bring it on over here. So it remembers those views, those zoom levels, and those layers. So not only do they serve the purpose of potentially creating your locations in space, but later when you start creating sheets, it allows you to create them. Now, if you don't like that, yes, I can create my own viewport. Let me go here to make view for my viewport. I can zoom into here, and it gives me the whole Civil 3D drawing. I do have the option of loading the V for view command like I did before and zoom into a particular design. So it works. It works in paper space and it works very well in model space. And I like how awesome it is for us to be able to just do a little bit of work and remembering those zoom levels, especially when we're dealing with very, very large sites. Or perhaps my previous work experience was with a town where we did repaving, and we repaved or repaired several patches of a street, and it all wasn't in one neighborhood. So this allowed me to save those locations and easily create my plans. What I also would like to do here is talk a little bit about AutoCAD. Just very simple, basic AutoCAD here. I'm just going to open a template. And what I would like to do is play with the undo command. And everyone knows the undo command, just it undoes the last thing you did. So I'm going to just draw a line here, 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 here. And if I hit undo, yes, I have a history where I can undo a group of commands. I can also redo. Now, what I would like to do here is, have you ever worked where you have probably a fork in your design? As in, you can go left or you can go right. You can do option 1 or option 2. And what I would like to talk about here is when you're working with probably option 1 and option 2, sometimes we end up doing a save as and doing a little bit of work. But what if it's enough I can do an undo? It's maybe just line work. So what I would like to show off here is the ability of perhaps marking my point in time and easily being able to roll back. That is, I'm going to hit the undo command. Typically, we just type U for undo, and I'm going to mark this location here. So as I mark that, I can start doing a little bit more design. I'm going to add a little square here, a little circle, perhaps a little bit of lines, and I'm going to copy out what I want to. And I figure out that, you know what, in the end, this is not what I want to do. Instead of having to going back up here and undoing God knows how many times, it depends how long you've been working, what I could easily do is have the software remember that last marked point. That is undo, and I can go B for back. And it's going to go all the way to the place that you last marked. And you can have several marks, kind of as little benchmark places of what you've done. And it's interesting that we're able to do that, but you have to think about it beforehand. Let me mark this place right here and let me see if this work. Oh, that didn't work. So instead of closing out and saving and undoing 10 times, you mark that location that you want to go out to. I think it's really neat that we're able to work with AutoCAD this way. These are just a handful of our options that we have to perhaps leverage Civil 3D and make it perhaps be a little bit more efficient for us in our day-to-day work. Hopefully you like some of those and are able to apply it at your work. So let's take a look at some other things inside of here. Let's work a little bit more with map. And let's see here, working with map. And I want to use the mapping technology, the GIS functionality. Maybe you guys are able to go to either your state or local government or university or county level and download data, whether it's parcel, whether it's roadway, signage, utilities. There's a lot of data that we're able to leverage out there. And that's what I want to talk about. And working with Civil 3D, which is built on top of map, I do have the option of switching on over from Civil 3D that allows me to do alignments and profiles to the planning and analysis that loads my mapping tools. If you guys are not aware of this, the way that AutoCAD's built, it's built with AutoCAD, then map, and then Civil. So this is what we're going to be talking about here next. And let me jump back into my presentation here. And that was the last thing I spoke about is undo. And what I would like to do is talk a little bit about Map 3D. And we're going to be looking at the import versus a connection. Because when we import, we create disassociated, simple AutoCAD type objects. It's almost like running the AutoCAD insert command. Versus connection, which is more like an XREF, we create a live feature data objects, an FDO connection. Both elements are going to be spoken to and addressed a little bit differently, but we're able to talk to them. And what we're able to do here on top of that is working with map and with Civil, we're actually able to take contour data and create terrain. It used to be a long way around to be able to do this, but now what we're able to do is connect to this type of information. And yes, it does give me the option of connecting to an ArcST database, an Oracle database, or the more common GIS shapefile, which I'm going to be showing off. The other option is to also create pipe networks. Now, this really also depends on how much information you have, making sure you have the pipe, the diameter, the invert, the elevation information. You need all that rich data to really be able to create a good looking surface and pipe network. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking there, using the mapping technology, that GIS technology for us to move forward with here. So let's take a look at this here. Insert versus import. And what I'm going to do is just play with this a little bit. I have a little bit of data that I've managed to download. I demo data all across the US here, and I usually try to keep something readily at hand here. And my home base is North Carolina. And I have several files that I've been downloading here. I have, for example, my Wake County parcels. This is my county that I'm going to be working with here. And let's take a look at what happens when I do an insert versus a connection. So if I go here to my insert tab, there's the option to import that data. And I can go out there and fish for it. Let's see here. I can go to my design data, Wake County, parcels, polylines here. And it will create AutoCAD entities. It will put in an AutoCAD layer. I do have the option of creating basic elements, and that's what we're going to see inside of here. I also have the option of filtering, but I'm going to do the whole entire county. This drawing has no reference point inside of here. I could do some filtering, but I'm just going to leverage everything so you see in the end the file size difference. And I'm just going to go hit OK, and it runs through 8,000, 11,000, 20,000. That's 30,000 parcels. I think we have like about 70,000 parcels in this drawing. That's 50. All right. Anybody have a watch? 70,000? No, I have a little bit more than 70. And this is live here. I'm bringing all the, that's a 120, 130,000, 140,000. So it would have been wise if I was working more with a city block or an area to filter this out. But right now I'm still waiting on 200,000 parcels to come in. And I really wanted to showcase this option of importing versus connecting. And this is where having a machine that's stout enough or really working with that data. You also need to be careful if you're pulling this over a server or connecting to live data via some type of online service, what this could potentially mean for you. All right, my fault. I should have cranked down to the city level, but let's see here. It's done. Did it crash? I think the last number I saw was 350,000 parcels. And my machine is sending SOS signals as it's, I'm not sure if the fan is, you guys can hear the fan, but that sucker just turned on. And if it doesn't die, I may have to, oh, there we go. So I think it took a little bit more than 73 seconds, but 375,689 objects were brought in here. So let's see what that looks like. And this is what I get into when I start working with the software. Zoom to extents. And the type of issues you might get if you try to consume this much of information. And right now, I'm not able to filter it down. I kind of get what I get. I'm able to delete it. And what I have here are the actual entities themselves. If that original file changes, this drawing would not update for me. I'm still waiting for it to populate here. Come on, buddy. So this is a good example of why you may want to filter your data down, but really showing the capabilities of AutoCAD to work with the software here. And what we have are these parcels. And if you work with the AutoCAD properties palette, notice inside of here, it's a polygon, and I didn't choose to bring any data. I should have chose to bring in data as well with it, but I didn't. Just for giggles here, I'm gonna save this drawing. And I would like to see how heavy this drawing became with over 300,000 parcels in it. DWG prompts, and let's take a quick peek here. Yeah, this drawing is 112 megs in size. All right, let's compare this to a connection to the same exact file. It took us a little over a minute to wait there, maybe two. I didn't set the stopwatch on it. But what I would like to do here is start looking at connecting to data. And in this case, it's the shape file. I'm going to go out there and browse to, and I'm going to hit that same shape file, the poly, I believe it was that I picked up. And I will connect to that information. I do have the option of filtering as well here, but I'm going to do a raw, just give me everything, the entire Wake County. There is option for filtering. And I'm just going to go ahead and say just what, add it to my map. Now this works a little bit different. I'm going to turn on my map W space, which allows me to show my workspace, and it's adding this, calls it a layer. Please know how much quicker that was. It's like working with a connection versus an insertion. And yes, it is a lot of data, but I do have the ability of filtering, the ability of pulling information, the ability of stylizing, the ability of labeling this so much more easier. Now, I do have my AutoCAD session weighed down with the previous drawing, but let me finish this guy out here, and we'll compare sizes. The previous drawing was 112 megs in size, and yes, I have the entire drawing set here. Let's save this just for comparison purposes. And as soon as it's done saving, we will run a DWG props. Oh, well, actually this one shows up a little bit more, 493 megs. But in this case, what I'm also doing with this drawing, if you give me a second here, it is a feature object. It's not AutoCAD line, but I'm also embedding this drawing with information. It is a live connection. So if I go back to the county site and re-download this file, all I have to do is resync it as long as it's the same name. One of the more awesome things that I can do inside of here is start filtering this down. And I can do a live filter because it is a connection. And I'm just going to do a simple query here. And I'm going to do to geometric. Let's do a query for touching any part of a circle, and we'll just put a little circle here. And I want to bring this information down just a little bit inside of a certain radius. So my drawing then gets reduced. And if I try to save this on the fly, DWG props, my drawing should have become a little bit smaller and a little bit easier to navigate inside of. It is a connection. Now, Imagine does teach this class. We have this already all booked out there, because the next portion inside of here is perhaps doing a little bit more with this, perhaps stylizing, changing its look, changing its color, or more specifically and important to me is perhaps adding a label inside of here so I can say, hey, let's take a look at perhaps adding in a little bit of data on here. I'm just going to put a little bit of text, and let's pull in something like the PIN number for it, or the ID for it, and just depends on what this particular GIS data was called. Let me just call it feature ID, apply, close out, and I'll be able to see the actual parcel IDs. So there's a lot that I can do with GIS data. This is parcel data, not to mention other type of information that I can bring into. It just depends what you have readily available, whether it's street, parcels, utilities. It's great to be able to pull this information in and see all this information. And I have access to all the tabular data that is on screen, and allows me to pull that data, see it, to be able to pull information for me. If I have wetlands, rivers, streams, if I'm trying to create some type of project inside of here, and I want to see if I'm staying away from certain areas for design, schools or perimeters, I'm able to leverage all this data that's out there for free, typically, from the state or local government or county, and leverage it, and not have to really spend too much time with my surveyors to do too much more work. Now, it's not survey quality, but being able to pull this information really, really quickly, I think it's very, very powerful. All right, that was just a little quick intro onto this, because I'm able to do more. Now, let me just take a few of these files here. I'm going to close them out. I'm just going to close all my files here, just to not get AutoCAD a little bit too heavy. And what I would like to do is talk a little bit more about working with GIS data in Civil 3D. And whether you choose to import and connect, Civil 3D is not able to do much with it. I want to talk about working with terrain, a surface first, and then we'll talk about a pipe network. What I would like to do is take a look at a contour file that I have. And whether I connect or insert, Civil is not going to be able to leverage that information. There's a special way of leveraging that information for us. So I'm going to start a drawing from scratch here, and working with mapping technology, leveraging GIS data within Civil 3D. Let's create a brand new drawing here. And I'm just going to create using the out-of-the-box template. And if you happen to bring in this contour file, let's take a look at this. One of my other favorite things is dragging and dropping. If you take a shape file and drag and drop it into your AutoCAD session, it connects to it. Map W space. It is a connection that got created. I can easily enable it and disable it. This is referred to a layer inside of Map 3D. I can't do anything with this here, but what I am able to see is pull intelligent information. And this is going to vary from municipality to municipality. Whoever is hosting this database here, is what's important is the elevation, this sucker right there. This is all flat. If I try to spin this in 3D, you'll notice that this really doesn't have an elevation to it. It does have embedded intelligent data on it, but these contours are flat. If I try to create a surface from this, it's not going to be possible, even if I did the insert or import option. But there is intelligence here. And the reason I wanted to take a minute to show this off is sometimes that elevation, let's see here, plan, enter, enter, plan, enter, enter, is that some municipalities give the elevation a slightly different name. They call it Z or EL or ELVE, or someone who may have not taken enough time, it's just called just line item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what's important here, that elevation, because I want to generate a terrain from it. So let's go here again, big letter C, new drawing. And this is old technology. I just want to talk about it because sometimes people forget that this is here, especially for the what if scenarios. I mean, this is not survey grade quality, but you're able to get a little bit more terrain to really get an idea of what the watershed looks like out there, as an example, or analyze it, even if a project is even possible. So what I want to show inside of here is I'm going to switch on over from planning and analysis back to Civil 3D. Although I am going to be using GIS data, I'm going to be using Civil 3D to create a terrain from here. And what I would like to do here is create a surface from this. And from my Home tab, I have the ability of creating a surface. And under the surfaces, there's one from GIS data. And this is documented on the web. You can give this sucker a name, give it a type. There's only surfaces here. Give it a description, give it a style, hit next. You're able to connect to ArcSDE or Oracle databases. In our case, it's a shape file. And I'm going to go out there and hit up a file folder for us. And where are you? It is under, let's see here, see, it's under my work stuff. I should have added it to my path over here. All right, let's grab it from here. And there's my shape file. Now, I'm actually logging to the shape file itself, using it. Be aware that contours could come in quads, so you may have to actually select several quadrants to work with. You may be working with different coordinate systems. Maybe your drawing's in meters and your data is in feet, or vice versa. And what I'm doing inside of here is I can define the area of interest. If you don't do anything here, it's going to consume everything. So you need to be careful. Are we dealing with about a city block, or are we dealing with a city, or we're dealing with a county or the state? So given that this would be important, I know this data is fairly small. This right here is going to be the important part. If you don't tell the GIS field that's pulling the elevation, you're going to create a flat piece of paper. What we need to is to make sure that we give elevation correctly inside of here. And this is the important part of knowing the data that you're working with. Sometimes it's actually not called the word elevation. Sometimes it's Z, sometimes it's EL, sometimes it's just line item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to know what inside of that GIS file is dictating elevation. And you need to tell it here. Once I hit finish, we wait because it is actually building a topo. Now, it did give me some errors. I'm thinking there's some contours that crisscross each other. So yeah, that's going to happen. But we actually have a surface now. Something that's real. If I place this in my object viewer, it's something that I can look at. Where's my object viewer? So if I wanted to run an alignment through here and run a profile, I can. Now, the good and the bad about this, guys, is I can always make my surface smaller. I can't append to it. So if you ended up chomping it and you ended up cutting it a little bit too much, there's no way of rereading the file and expanding it out. You would have to create a brand new surface for yourself. So that's a really weird part. Or you can create another surface and paste it onto it. It's just a little bit odd. You can always cut down, but it's not easy to go back and add in case you end up filtering a little bit too much. But it's a real surface. Now I can do the same thing with pipes. Pipes is weird. Pipes doesn't have the option here. Notice under surfaces, there's the option for GIS data, but pipes does not. There's a secret for pipes. And I'm glad you joined our session here so I can show you the secret. I'm gonna go here and start with a brand new drawing. Again, I'm just going after the task of creating a pipe network from GIS data. I don't have anything really supporting inside of here. I can't even remember where I got these files from. It's been so long ago. But in this case, what you want to do here, if we're working with pipes, you're going to go to the Insert tab. From the Insert tab, you're going to go to the Import dropdown, and you're going to go here to Import GIS data. It's really odd where it's at. And the only thing that this Import GIS data works is for pipes. It hasn't changed in years. I mean, this has been working since like 2012. I can go out there and find where this file is at, either the point file or the folder. Typically for pipes, I do folders because I may have pipes and structures quite separately. So I can connect to that file and I can start looking at what I'm going to be bringing in here, what parts of this I'm going to be working with. I'm going to say this is sanitary. I forgot what it was. Labels if I want any. Schema, so I know what I'm going to be pulling. What's what? My pipes are going to be circular, sure. Now this is the important part. Looking back at the data, what is readily available? Do I have things like material? Do I have things like slope? Do I have things like invert information? So this is what it is inside of that intelligent GIS file. So it looks like I have name, length. Okay, so let's see here, slope, start invert, and end invert, and structures as well. So if I look at this here, it does take a little bit of time to map all this, but if I start looking at perhaps here, I have the ability of starting structure. I have the structure start, end structure, structure end. Slope matches slope, start invert. So I have the invert end. Do I have a start invert? Yes, I do. And I have an end invert. Now, this is not always going to be readily available. It depends who you're getting this. The wording there may not match exactly. That's where you have to kind of have some awareness. And sometimes I end up starting with Map 3D, connecting to the data just to get a feel for what things are called. Next is, I'm gonna use the default shape, is the next mapping pipes. Did it work out? Next. Structures. And inside of here, I have to look at what do I have for structures. I have rim elevation and sump elevation. All right, so let me get inside of here for great material. Do I have a rim elevation? So I can pull the rim elevation. And I do actually happen to have a sump elevation. Some of the elements map each other well if they have the same category name. And depends on which municipality you're working with. You can actually load and save the data mapping in case you do always get this information. You don't have to sit here and spend some time adding it in. So hopefully, let me see, I can get into my next tab. I have some querying options. I'm just going to bring everything up. I have some cleanup to make sure that structures and pipes snap to each other. And fingers crossed here, I will actually get a Civil 3D pipe network through here. And let's see what we have here. Home, tool space. It should have created a pipe network for me. Sure did. Let's zoom to it. Oh, something very simple. I can take this sucker and start orbiting it around and see what it gave me. Really short network here. If I was dealing with more a city level or down several streets, I just wanted to show you off here that it's not only about displaying data that came from GIS, but feeding it into Civil 3D. And the software provides two options. One, for surfaces from GIS. Two, from the Insert tab, I can create pipe networks from GIS using this button over here. Really powerful, especially for existing conditions. That way you can get utilities, or if you happen to have data that I know I'm an ex-city employee. I can call my contacts at the city, say, hey, I just need data to demo, and I think this may have been one of those little pieces of the data that I got. I like that I'm able to create civil data and spend very little time as far as figuring out what's out there, or can even feed this onto the surveyor. Hey, according to the city, there's a line right here, there's an abandoned line, there's an existing line, there's a pressurized line. Make sure that you pick this up for us. So even though it might not be survey quality, it could feed onto perhaps getting an idea what's out there, or making sure that the elements that we think are out there would be picked up. Because I worked for the city for quite a long time, and we had manholes in people's houses. It was old parts of Cary, but it still existed. So we had utilities where we didn't even know existed, under pavement, under concrete, inside of people's yards. So just a little something there that we're able to leverage from within the software here. That was really dealing with map and civil. Moving on forward, we want to talk about Civil 3D here. And I have several tips and tricks working with Civil 3D. For this is the zooming to objects. I like the option to zoom to object from the prospector command, or from nowadays from the transparent commands. With cross sections, this has been a newer functionality. I think it was added in 2018, where you're able to select a section on screen in plan view and zoom to the grid. Or once you get to the grid, you're able to zoom to the section line itself, which is really nice. I've been waiting for that one quite a long time. And just as a reminder, there is a buffer for cross sections that allow you to move move a section, and any data that's in there move along with it. Smoothing a surface. If a surface is not looking really pretty, existing or proposed, we can go inside there and add or increase the density of it, not through a style, but actually increasing the tin on it. And in this case, I gave it a 10 by 10 grid and make it, well, a lot smoother. Other options here is you have to be careful when you drag and drop styles, because you can be pulling in too many layers or too many blocks or too many junk that you didn't know was actually in there. It doesn't just pull the layer of the styles, what it comes down to. Working with labels, this is really awesome. I could label a manhole, and a manhole may be part of one street and a lateral street, and I can label that manhole twice, and at the label, give it one alignment versus the other. Because the structure has a reference alignment to it, but I can set the label to pull any other alignment for myself, which I think is really awesome. And ultimately, talking about labels is you can create really wicked cool labels inside of the Civil software if you set them up appropriately. So you can have a manhole get information at the top and at the bottom. This is just an example how I can get maybe the name of the manhole, the rim and station information, and invert information at the bottom. It does understand these pieces, but you need to make sure that you set up the software appropriately so we get these labels to work out for us. So let's take a look at this inside of Civil 3D. Let's see here, what was the first thing I wanted to talk about? Let's look at zooming. All right, so here, let's just open something up here. And I'm gonna open up with sections, all right. Using the tool space, specifically the prospector tab, I like the option to look at a particular surface, right click on it, and zoom to it. Or if I have a particular surface, not only is the select right click to zoom to, I actually like the select option. So if it's on screen, I can select it. In this case, this is tin surface finish grade roads. So this is a tin surface finish grade roads. So I do have that option to select right click and either zoom to or select if I have way too many elements. Or by that matter, let's see here, I have alignments and I have a whole bunch of alignments inside of here. Where's road B? Right click, select the sucker. That's road B, right click on it and I can zoom to it. So I have this awesome little option over here. Or if I happen to have cross sections, these guys right here, station 1250, but I have a bunch of alignments. Who is 1250 associated with? Well, I can take this guy right here, right click and do a zoom to sample line. And it takes me to that location in space. That's 1250. I have station 1200. I can select that little line, right click and have the option to zoom to section view. And there it is, 1200. I can zoom to my object, specifically zoom to my lines here. Now, something that was added a few years back is this buffer here. And this was, I think, in, about 4 years ago, that sections now have buffers. See that little green line over there? Just gonna make it be yellow so it stands out. And what that buffer allows me to do is if I have any AutoCAD geometry inside of here, let's say I added a circle, or maybe I added a piece of text in a note here. If I move my grid, that AutoCAD geometry moves along with it, which is wicked awesome, guys. Now, to break your heart, it does not happen with profiles. If you draw a little circle over here or a little rectangle over here and then choose to move your profile view, yeah, that stuff stays behind. So profiles are not AutoCAD aware, but cross sections are. So if you end up adding a little bit of text or a note or any AutoCAD geometry to it, when I move that grid or maybe resize it or reset it, it moves along with it. It's really wicked awesome. So all my AutoCAD annotations don't disappear and end up junk in space. It unfortunately has not brought it on over to to profiles, and even in 2021, it still remains that way. So just a little heads up there with zooming to and a little extra with cross sections. Let's see what else we have inside of here. Smoothing out our surfaces, smooth surface. All right. So in this case, it is a really simple pad that I created in this drawing. And the elevations that I work with elevation 740, 755, 756, and 765. So you can see it over here in 3D. There's a 2D and 3D view of it. Now, granted, I can try to edit a style and add smoothing to the style, but that's not what I want inside of here. You notice how it's set to false. It's really, really ugly and jagged. What I can do is try to smooth this out. Now, it does have the option as a surface edit to simplify, that is remove 10 lines and 10 points, or smooth, add. You see a little plus sign on there? It's a surface edit. So as I select this option here, I will select the surface right here. The option will be natural neighbor interpolation. I am doing a grid based. There are a couple other options, centroids, random points, or edges. And I'm going to say, hey, select this region. Unfortunately, it's not a drop down. This is going to be really important here for you to select the area you want to work with, because you can do a rectangle, a polygon, or the entire surface. Sometimes I only need to clean up a certain area of it, so that's why you get the option. I'm going to just do the entire surface, and I am going to do a 10 by 10 grid here. And the really awesome part about this, as I run through this, before I even accept it, it tells me I'm about to add 498 points to the surface. Look at it in 3D over here. Look at it in 2D. Look how jagged those contours are on, because if you blink, you're going to miss this. It goes through and adds a 10 by 10, and it smooths out my contours. Really, really pretty here, which you can do to existing and or proposed conditions. So many times I've created parking lots and they just don't look pretty for me. Or vice versa, I get a surface that came in from some type of scan or aerial flight and it has too much. I do have the option to simplify or smooth out. That was smoothing. All right, what else I talked about here? Drawing settings. All right, let's take a look at this drawing settings. Let's open up here styles. I forget what I want inside of here. All right, so let's take a look at this here. And I'm going to be dragging and dropping styles. And this is the thing with styles here, guys, is I'm going to focus on layers. This drawing has a handful of layers. I have a blue layer, I have a red layer, and I have a yellow layer. All right. Now, let's say I wanted to drag and drop this contour style. This contour style is using the yellow layer. All right. It makes sense that if I ever drag and drop this style here, which is using a yellow layer, I'm going to get the yellow layer. So let's test that out here. Let's start a brand new drawing, big letter C, new drawing. I'm going to use the AutoCAD template, which is empty. And I'm going to use that classic method of dragging and dropping a style. There's different ways of doing this. I'm not after the method, I'm after the results. This drawing is clean. This drawing over here for the surface labels, I'm missing that label style. What I'm going to do is switch this on over to master. And I'm going to show off under the styles drawing for my surface, the label style that I want here. The one called yellow. As I drag and drop this style over here, I now have it in my drawing. I'm going to switch this on over to my active drawing. Drawing number 7 now has the yellow layer contour label, and it should have that color here, and it brings on over yellow. Now, what I was going to try to show here is what happens when you start dragging and dropping styles, and there's more that comes on over. Let's switch on over here to back to my style drawing. So the idea is here, yes, I have my source layer, which is part of the style. It's set to layer yellow. But what happens inside of here is I can have as well at the category level for the surface, I can have a whole different layer being used up here. Label, I can have this work with red. Or at the drawing level, I can go up here and go to label settings, and I'm gonna have this sucker use blue. So now I have 3 different places where I'm calling 3 different layer objects. At the drawing level, I'm calling for the layer blue. At the object layer for surface, I'm calling for layer red. At the label itself, I'm using yellow. So I'm 3 tiers in. What happens when I start up a brand new drawing? Again, I'm going to use a clean one, the AutoCAD template. And I'm going to drag and drop that same style, that same yellow one, which should, of course, bring just the yellow layer. And if it doesn't make me a liar, this is going to be the root of many of your headaches or problems when you start recycling styles. I'm just going to drag and drop him on over. And what you see here is now I have blue, yellow, and red. Because yes, I had yellow at the style level, but then I had other colors at the surface and then at the drawing level. You need to be careful with this because, and this is part of my PowerPoint, where there are drawing settings, category settings, and style settings. It is obvious that if you drag and drop a style, you're going to bring whatever information is embedded into that style. But if there's other settings at the higher parent levels, you're going to bring that stuff too. And internally, your colors, your layers, your styles, that's not going to have a lot of problems. But when you start borrowing from someone else, you may have a little bit of headaches that you didn't expect to work with. All right, so let's see what else we have here. Labels. This is going to be awesome. So just looking at awesome labels. So here are structure labels, and I just want to talk about what we're able to do here. If I so happen to have a structure label over here, and I'm going to hide, let's go ahead and hide my corridor, and there's my structure label, right? Let's give it something with a little bit of more data here. Structure name, can I get something with connected data? Need pipes. All right, here we go. Nope. Give me the name of the alignment. Just give me the name of your reference alignment. And I thought this sucker already had it. Let me get the name of the reference alignment. So my alignment is road 1, which makes sense because if I look at the properties of this structure, the reference alignment is road 1. So yes, it makes sense that that guy right there is that guy right there. Now what I'm able to do is not have to do a change to the structure, but I can do a change to the label. And again, here I'm gonna just do a match properties, you to you. Road 1. I have this lateral going out here, and this lateral going out here is called X-form, whatever. What I could do at the label level is at the label level, notice how it says reference alignment none, means whatever the structure is saying, that's what I want you to use, but I can have you use anything else. And that's what it's pulling there. I have one structure being labeled twice, and one label has the main line, and I have the lateral as well. I don't have any station values to it, but notice how it's pulling the name for me. So it is possible to have one structure being labeled twice and pull information from 2 different alignments. It has its default alignment. Notice what it says none here, what it's defaulting to within the structure itself, and an alternate that I told it to use something else. All right, vertically. Let me wrap this one up here. Under profiles, if you set the softwares intelligently enough, you can get a really awesome label over here. And the idea here is this. There is, let's add a label here. There is 2 options here. There is a label location, and there is what's referred to as a dimension location. And you'll notice how the dimension is set to the bottom and the label location is set to the top. So what happens inside of here, this requires a lot of setup, but I can make the Civil software really, really intelligent because down here under the profile settings, this is where I have it set to my anchor option below, my structure label placement above. And what happens here is when I add a label, it can be intelligent enough to pull information at the top and at the bottom. And inside of here, the structure label, this is what it's doing. The label itself here, the one that's called profile vertical manhole, I have data for this manhole. The structure label, look at this. It's looking at the label location. The invert is looking at the dimension location. And that's why I have that set that way. See these features here? Dimension at the bottom, label at the top, giving me that information at the top versus that information at the bottom. One label pulling it pulling data from the top and the bottom there, making something really, really pretty for me. But I need to make sure it understands that way for me to work it out for me. And that has to do with the configuration of the software. And guys, this was just a little bit of use, a little bit of setup, a little bit of headaches that we get with the software, dealing from AutoCAD to map to Civil 3D. And guys, I can go on for hours and hours. We have different classes that could help you out if you're interested in the mapping, the GIS, and doing a little bit more civil. We offer services for setup, or for some of my clients, we just offer time. Hey, Leo, let's sit down and I have some questions, some headaches I need you to look at. Or we offer services where we sit down with you, look at your entire workflow, and let you know how things could be better. My name is Leo Lavayen. I work with Imaginate Technologies, and wanted to turn over to the team here. It's just a few minutes to the end of the day, and wanted to see if there's any questions posted other than my mistake at the beginning of the day that I forgot to unfreeze my screen. And my email
Thanks, Leo.
should be Lavayen. Ms. Gladys?
We've got a couple questions. Yep.
Yes, what do you have?
When creating viewpoints from views, will those same layers stay frozen or off if the views is set to retain layer info?
Yes, they will. So if you look at that over here under, I think I was working with views, you'll notice that when I create the layout tab over here, you'll notice everything is on in model space. But when I switch on over to viewports over here, I have several different views that I was working with. I think I did a corridor only. There's corridor only. The viewport remembers that, but I had the ones that's cul-de-sac, and you can see the rest of the data that pops with it. So yes, the views will remember them as well.
Can you redo from a mark to where you were? I'm not sure if you can answer that one at this point.
Yes, it should remember it, everything that you did. So let's just take a look at it here. Plan, enter, because it should remember. Let's just draw here, undo, mark, circle. Notice there is no, the redo button is not active yet. Let's undo and let's go back. And you can see now that the redo button is now available. So yes.
How did you get to map?
I'm using Civil 3D, and Civil 3D is built on top of map. Map is built on top of AutoCAD. So with Civil 3D, if I hit this little drop down up here, there's an option to switch on over to planning and analysis. And that gives me more of the mapping and GIS tools.
Okay. That was 493 KB, not MB. Is that correct?
I forget what they were here. Let me take a look at what I was working with here a little bit earlier. Work stuff that was under what I did here and here. Let's see here. So there's the FDO and there's the import. It's drastically different file sizes.
Is there a Productivity Now course that covers the information we are seeing today?
This will all be recorded. This is just kind of a brain dump that I put together for this particular course. A lot of it was from within this last year, things I dealt with a client. That undo mark, that happened this morning, and I added it to this presentation. Now, with the Productivity Now, we of course have the map class, we have the civil class, and with Productivity Now, we do at times do little lunch and learn sessions, but there isn't anything very specific. This is kind of today was just a shooting gallery of the brainstorming from Leo's mind. So there's nothing specific to this. This will be recorded though.
Yes, it will. And a recording will be sent to everyone that either registered or attended. How do you delete a profile band label? Control plus select, delete. Not working anymore.
No, they don't. They're silly like that. So you have to go to the profile properties. Let's see here, section view updates. So down here under the profile views, I have a band at the bottom, and oh, that's not a grid. Here we go. This is a real grid. And if I go to the profile view properties, there's a whole bands tab dedicated here. So if I take this sucker and delete it, you'll notice that that station and elevation label will disappear along with it.
Okay. While the FDO is smaller, if there are parcels we need to send to a client, won't those FDO parcels need to be attached?
Yes, they would, and there is an option for that over here under drawing utilities. There is a, oh gosh, or maybe, oh, it's under map. There is an option to save map as drawing, because if they get that, they're going to get an empty freaking drawing. So I go up here to output, and there is an option here to, where are you? There it is, drawing, no, drawing to save, yeah, here it is, save map to DWG. So that FDO data then becomes embedded in there. Now I did deal with the whole county, and in a normal idea, we're going to be just looking at just the city level, the street that we want to. If you do the entire county, that drawing is going to grow exponentially, but that is the answer right here.
Okay, I think that's the last question.
Sweet. Guys, this is what we do. We have a dedicated team of about 20 people who do support day in and day out. We have a team dedicated to online training. We have a team that does pre-recorded training and adds onto our Productivity Now platform. And we have a team such as myself who do customized training, implementation, and work. And I want you guys to be successful. You have my email. You have Miss Gladys as well. If you have any issues, problems, or questions, don't hesitate to email us because we're here to help. Thank you very much for your time, fellas.
Thanks to everyone that attended, and thanks to our presenter, Leo Lavayen. Thank you all. We hope you enjoy the remainder of your day.